Okay, today I'm going to be talking about midline brain structures with these images. This is a mid-sagittal section which divides the brain into right and left halves. Here, superior is above the top of the head, and then inferior below, posterior here on the right side of my image that denotes the back of the patient, and the anterior here, which is the front. First, I'll be talking about the cerebrum, which is this major area here. It sits superior to the brainstem and anterior to the cerebellum. Now we've got the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum has got all of these different areas. The genu here is the anterior bend. Rostrum is the inferior and anterior portion. The body is the length of the corpus callosum, and the splenium is the thicker posterior portion on the posterior end. Then we've got the pineal gland, which is posterior to the third ventricle and just above the midbrain, and it extends posteriorly from the roof of the diencephalon. Then we've got the quadrigeminal plate, also known as the tectum, and it is posterior to the cerebral aqueduct of here, and that's the cerebral aqueduct of Sylvius. Then anterior to the quadrigeminal plate here is the cerebral peduncle area, and it is just inferior to the thalamus. And then just inferior to the hypothalamus are the mammillary bodies here, which are two small rounded structures that project slightly anteriorly. Now we're going to this area here. Here is the infundibulum, that extends inferiorly from the hypothalamus and connects to the pituitary, and that's the pituitary gland just here, which sits directly inferior to the hypothalamus. It sits inside the sella turcica, which is a really quite adorable, I think the most cutest bone in the human body, because it just really sort of houses that pituitary gland just perfectly. The anterior lobe is the more glandular, larger portion, and the posterior lobe is slightly smaller and to the posterior. And then just superior and anterior to the pituitary gland is the optic chiasm here. The cerebellum here is posterior and inferior to the cerebrum here. And then now we've got the pons and medulla. So here's the pons. It's a part of the brainstem, and it's anterior to the fourth ventricle, just here, and superior to the medulla, just here. The medulla oblongata continues inferiorly towards the spinal cord. We have got to the tentorium cerebelli, which is this area here, which is a fold of dural matter that slopes posteriorly and inferiorly, and it forms a roof over the cerebellum here. All right, so now we're going to talk about the ventricles. In this image here, we've got superior, which is at the top, anterior the front of the patient, posterior at the back of the patient here, and inferior down towards the brainstem down here. So we have got the corpus callosum would be just about here, and then inferior to the corpus callosum would be the lateral ventricles, just here, separated at the midline by the septum pellucidum, which is actually better illustrated over here. Sorry, I circled the wrong area. Over here is just about there. So if we move inferior and slightly posterior, we can see the third ventricle just here, which sits in the midline between the thalami, and then from here we've got the aqueduct of Sylvius, or the cerebral aqueduct, that extends inferiorly and posteriorly through the midbrain, and that leads us to the fourth ventricle here, and that's located anterior to the cerebellum and posterior to the pons. We've also got the foramen of foramen of Luschka here, and the foramen of Magendie down here. Now we're just going to look at a little bit of this coronal section. So here's superior, and then we've got the right and left inferior in this coronal slice. It's just because I feel like this better illustrates the septum pellucidum that separates the lateral ventricles. It also shows the choroid plexuses here, where the cerebral spinal fluid is made, and this whole area here is the lateral ventricle sitting just under the corpus callosum here. I feel like this coronal plane complements the sagittal view by showing not just the midline relationships, but how these structures expand laterally. I'm so sorry about the extra noise. I've tried to talk as loud as I could, but just my housemate has got grandchildren and nephews over, and it is incredibly noisy. So I hope that this was loud enough, because this is about the 20th time that I've done this, and thank you very much.